Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
The truth shall set you free.
You can't handle the truth.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
That's not how the Force works.
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
I'd buy that for $1.
Hasta la vista, baby.
This woman has to be gotten to a hospital.
Hospital? What is it?
It's a big building with patients. That's not important right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
Hello and welcome to Creative Control, a new podcast brought to you by Zito's Gang, where we reshape cinema for the better. I'm your host, Ken Nakbler, and thank you for joining us on episode 3. So on each episode, we're going to discuss, in our expert opinions, if we had creative control, how we would shape a future movie project or correct the mistakes of the past. Joining me on today's episode is fellow Zito's Gang star Neil. How you doing?
I'm good. Hey.
Also, my special guests today are Andreas and Alex, back for their second podcast. How you doing?
I'm good. Hello.
And also we've got newbie Chris H. I'm going to refer to you as Chris H. We have two Chris's in the gang. So how you doing, Chris? Thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Right. So today's episode is all about casting the Fantastic Four and how we're going to introduce them into the MCU. So I don't think there's anywhere else we can start except for one person, because he has been going on about this for some time, even when this was a concept to me like several months ago. So Neil, if you had creative control, what would you do?
Oh boy. If I had creative control, well, Fantastic Four would literally be like the forefront of everything that happens in the Marvel universe from here on in. I mean, I've thought about this for years, since like the MCU began, everything. Always been thinking about how they've done. I've seen other people who have come up with stories of how they would do it. Mm-hmm. Some are good, some not so good. Well, man, I'd love to see it. I mean, casting, I literally, like, I've had a top 5 list for all the major roles going from like way back when.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want my cast first, or you want my idea first?
I think what we'll do, we'll go around the table and do the ideas, and then we'll do a whip around to everybody's casting.
Okay. All right. Well, my idea obviously is it had to be shaped a little more considering events in the MCU in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
I would look at it as like so ever since Civil War, mm-hmm. the Sokovia Accords have been a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, regardless of, you know, the events of Civil War, we know that some people were good with it, some people weren't good with it. But essentially, we just know that the Accords exist. I would keep that thread. I would keep it that the Accords exist. So any kind of real superhero teams you see out and about, for the most part, they have to be government sanctioned or UN sanctioned, government sanctioned, whichever way it operates. But also, I would say in the kind of post-Endgame world, so in the world we're looking at currently, there's dispute over, I mean, it probably is a plot point. I've heard it's a plot point in the Falcon Winter Soldier show, mm-hmm. that there's a dispute over who is actually Captain America, whether it's going to be Sam Wilson or whether it's going to be the US agent, right? I could be wrong, so that's not a spoiler. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not made yet. Yeah. But I'm like, in the post-Endgame world, we don't have a Captain America. We don't really have a Thor. We don't have an Iron Man. Mm-hmm. So we're basically, the heavy hitters of the superhero community aren't there. The most famous, the ones in the limelight. So what's kind of going on right now is every kind of superheroes that is running around is government sanctioned. Mm-hmm. And what I would say that is in New York, the Baxter Building exists, and it's sort of like a government sanctioned research center. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is they've got like the brightest minds in multiple different technologies there to sort of basically kind of create the next version of Avengers.
Yeah.
Right. So, but what they have is they'll have different people working on there, and it's like, so Doom, Victor Von Doom would be present. He'd be there, but he's working on like what would roughly be basically be like the next Iron Man.
Yeah. So you're gonna have some people probably looking at doing tech, and some people working on like a super soldier serum type thing.
Exactly that. It's run by Franklin Richards. I would keep, the traditional outlook of it. So it's run by Franklin Richards. Franklin's, his two kids, Sue and Johnny, they're both there. They're working on I'd say Sue is working on her own particular avenue of things. Whereas Johnny's more, he's as smart as Sue, but he's basically there so that his father can keep an eye on him. I'd have Ben there, but Ben is like he's a military man. So as this is government run, they need people who can do security. They need people who can be like test pilots for suits and experimental planes and stuff. So he's there in that capacity. But he's also, he's struck up a friendship with Reed. Reed is working on technology that is very similar to the Tesseract. A callback to Avengers 1 when they say it's a doorway into space. So calling back to that, so they're working on the technology of it, and through all the readings and all the capabilities, all the information that they have on the Tesseract, Reed's trying to work on like ways to do like open up portals so you can have soldiers instantly turn up somewhere. So it's not like, there's a war going on in Asia. Okay, how long is it going to take us to get, a group of soldiers on a plane and then get that plane to, there's like, if we can open a portal and just ship them through, we cut out everything. So Reed's working on that, and, true superhero origin story fashion, it goes wrong. Something goes wrong. And what happens is during one of his experiments, a portal opens up, and I was flirting with the idea of it being the negative zone, but I'd like that to be, as long as we're working with portals and tesseracts, we can get to that later. I'd like it to be, he opens up a portal basically to just like the other end of space. And as he's doing that, I'm not going to say that it's anything to do with Galactus or the Silver Surfer, but they basically, the people in the room, and the only people who are left in the room would be like Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben. They get flooded with radiation from the power cosmic.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, Galactus just sees a hole open up near him and just fires a beam. You have no idea. All you know is that the power cosmic just floods the room and they're in it. So they are hit with power cosmic, and that's what's going to give them their powers. But also at the same time, because of the malfunction with the portal, it opens up multiple different portals all within the space of the Baxter building and maybe the surrounding area. So it causes a lot of things to go wrong just for people who are inside there. So there's, a few people die. We can also have it that it messes with Doom's experiment. So that causes him to, that's what causes him to wind up, burned and scarred. And, he gets his suit out of that. Now that they have their powers, the Fantastic Four are basically being used as like a government sanctioned team.
Okay.
So, things happen and they get sent in to deal with it. Similar to, I guess you could say how...
I'll say they did that a little bit in Fan Four Stick, or Translation.
Yeah. It was a good idea.
The concept was okay.
The concept was good, but the execution was not great.
Yeah,
but they're kind of used as this team to basically show the world, look how great the superheroes can be when the government is behind them,
when they're controlling them.
When the government's backed, look how good they can be.
The Avengers were in charge and we lost half the universe, kind of thing.
Exactly, right? It was like when we let them roam free, half the universe has blipped out of existence. When they're government controlled, everything goes wrong. But I use that as a plot point, because what I'm going to say is, in a callback to what Captain America says in Civil War, where he's like, what happens if we want to go somewhere and they don't want us to?
Yeah.
I'm going to have it that a situation unfolds somewhere, and the Fantastic Four was like, look, we should go. This is a bad situation. We need to go. And maybe it's a place that doesn't really align with the US's interests. So they're like, nah, you can't go. And it turns into a tragedy. It turns into like, a really bad situation that unfolds. Many people die, things. And what happens is like Reed basically he's being positioned as like the young new Tony Stark, who's one of the brightest minds in the world. But he's also a philanthropist. Like, before he joins the Baxter Building, everything he's trying to create is for the betterment of mankind. So all he wants is mankind to reach his full potential. He has no real heavy interest in being like, well, I'm in charge here, or I want the fame and the glory. He's like, no, let's all reach the mountaintop together. It really, really pisses him off, and to such a degree that he's like, I kind of want to go off on my own without government help, because the idea of letting people die because they're on another, they're on the opposite end of a political line, that doesn't sit well with him.
Yeah.
So because of that, essentially, like, the fact that they now all have powers and they've all kind of been cordoned off together, they kind of form this kind of pseudo family, and obviously we have it that there is some kind of romantic interest between Sue and Reed. But so, it's sort of like, well, they kind of say, you know what? We kind of agree with you. The fact that we're supposed to be heroes, the government, they've got us on posters and billboards. We're supposed to be saving lives.
With great power comes.
Yeah, but the second that life comes and they're not happy with it, we have to just let them die so that don't run. So they go off on their own. Whilst all of this is happening, my villain of the piece will kind of make himself known, which would be like the Toy Man.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And the reason I want it to be him is I would say that basically in the wake of, like, prior to Reed's arrival, when they first set up the Baxter Building, I tweak his backstory. I would have it that he was at the Baxter Building dealing with like advanced robotics. And they were like, well, can you make us, like a version of the Avengers, basically? I want a super strong, powerful guy like the Hulk. I want a, Iron Man-esque guy. I want my Captain America. I like, the kind of the basic things, you want the powerhouse. You want the quick and agile one, but he's creating these androids and they're like, oh, you're the Toy Man. For whatever reason, maybe he's got, some unsafe practices, or he's got, basically he's not as, much of a philanthropist as Reed. They basically like, yeah, you're too extreme, mate. You're gone. So they kick him out for something. So after they kick him out, he basically spends his time after being kicked out creating his own version of a team that could go after the Baxter Building. He basically just he's like, well, if you can't let me in, then no one should be in. How about I just destroy the place and then show you exactly what you could have had? I'd say fast forward a bit, the Baxter Building is attacked by the Toy Man and his little army of drones or whatever. The Fantastic Four, they like to prove exactly what they said, which is all life is sacred, not just the ones on our side. They go back and they try and save everyone. They do everything they can. It's a film, so they win. But once they've won, they kind of form a partnership with the government where it's like, we work with you, not for you. And it's like, and Reed will be like, Reed's mindset will be like, look, I have all these ideas, all these things that I can create. The technology is there, but you only get it if we have freedom to go about our business and save the lives that need to be saved. Like, if you're like, oh, you can't go there, everything shuts down. So you got to pick what you want. Obviously, the government's like, all right, you know what? For now, we're good with this arrangement. And that's the movie, you know?
Okay.
The Fantastic Four become the Fantastic Four.
All right, awesome. That was in depth, man. Well done.
Yeah, that was good.
He's had all the themes there, all the players, and
I went with it.
yeah, no, I dug it, man. It's taking some of the elements, you know, a little bit of like the last one, like you say, but you know, whether that was going to be a different movie because it was cut very differently. I think, you know, in the second half, and the director's kind of said he wants his own director's cut of that.
Yeah.
It's playing into the themes, it's modernizing it for a modern audience in terms of what they're looking for. But it also plays back to the original movies as well. Because for me, I think I've read a couple of Fantastic Four comics. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the biggest on sort of like the history. I know it mainly through maybe like the cartoons and from the movies and stuff like that. So to me, that kind of plays out well. Yeah, I'd see that movie. So Alex, all right, you have Creative Control.
Okay, blimey, how did you follow up?
How'd you follow that? I know, right? No pressure. Sorry,
yeah, to be honest, I'm kind of the same as you. My sort of, in terms of comic knowledge, I was never one for the Fantastic Four. So yeah, my knowledge comes from obviously the existing movies and things like one of the really old cartoons, which I don't even think the Human Torch was in. It was that stupid Herbie robot or something. Herbie. You know, worried kids were going to set themselves on fire or something, so the Human Torch wasn't even in it. So. Yeah, a few very similar elements to what Neil was talking about there. So I kind of had sort of two kind of initial ideas. One was you kind of do pretty much the basic kind of origin as we kind of know it, just sort of more modern day. So with this whole idea of, obviously, we've now got Guardians of the Galaxy, people kind of know aliens exist, this kind of stuff. So far, it's only like the Avengers that have gone into space. So again, this whole idea of like the Baxter Building is kind of already established, and their mission is to basically explore, you know, first human beings to try and explore the galaxy, and sort of plays out pretty much standard. Yeah, okay, they go on their mission, cosmic rays, get their powers, as one would kind of expect. The other idea, I think, has been hashed around a little bit online a few years ago with the whole idea of, would the Fantastic Four kind of already exist? Because again, we've seen it with Spider-Man where they've already decided, okay, look, we've heard the origin story a million times. We're not going to go down that road. So to kind of just kick them straight in where they kind of already exist, but maybe how do you explain that? So this idea of, again, my knowledge on the negative zone is limited, but understanding of it's sort of, you know, another dimension, that kind of thing. So maybe like they Fantastic Four existed in, I'm trying to think time periods here because I'm trying to make sure that nothing sort of clashes with what's going on in the MCU. So I'm thinking maybe like late 70s, 80s or something like that. And, you know, they end up in the negative zone, which is why they kind of haven't been around for all the stuff that's gone on.
My take similar to that. My take is similar to that. Yeah.
Obviously, with all the stuff that's gone on, you know, suddenly they sort of pop back and reappear. You can give it the whole, you know, other dimension, so time is slowed, all that kind of stuff. So they're pretty much the same age as they were when they left, and that kind of thing. In terms of actual sort of like in-depth story stuff, I've got no.
That's cool. No, that's it is that interesting.
Yeah, my idea was
established origin.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I just think, you know, probably Doom would be the sort of the classic villain that you'd have in that respect. But yeah, that was my initial.
Cool.
Point.
All right, Chris, you have creative control.
Yeah, I'm thinking established rather than anything else. I like the idea they teased it in Spider-Man about the multiverse, so I feel like they're laying the groundwork already. And I kind of, a little bit Superman-y, but I want to use the destruction of New York City to kind of explain that perhaps the Baxter Building there, the guys were there, they weren't anything special, but in the attack in New York or something like that, they got kind of wiped out or attacked or killed. It was really kind of harsh. But then with multiverse, it kind of enables you to kind of set them up already that they're established, but coming over to our Earth kind of is then A, they've got a reason to stay because their counterparts have all been sort of wiped out. But then B, I think from a villain perspective, I think the thing I loved about Thanos is that he was almost untouchable. And for so much, he was this big, like, faceless guy working in the background. And again, with Doctor Doom, the way I could kind of see that is he does exist in our Earth, and he's perhaps not as bad, but if he comes with them, so he, you know, he's this big corporate that sponsored the Fantastic Four wherever they were previously, but then when he comes over, you know, you've got this opportunity for him to take over the life of the existing person and become that sort of untouchable entity because, well, everyone knows him and everyone knows his face as being this, you know, he's a philanthropist, he helps, you know, there's all this stuff he could have done. But then all of a sudden, you know, in the background, he's actually taken over it. And, you know, I'm thinking now with stuff like Flash and everyone's so used to a multiverse and all this sort of stuff. And there's just so many things now where I think they tried to do a reboot with Captain Marvel and it just felt a bit flat. You know, you watch this reboot and you're a bit like, you know, it's been such a long time since these guys have done a superhero origin story that you feel like it's a bit, you know, it's this, oh, when are they going to get to the action and all this sort of stuff. But when they're ready to go, people are like, yeah, I know the Fantastic Four. There's been 3 films, even though they don't actually stick them in the same universe. They're used to saying they exist, and I think that would help speed stuff up a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely a shout for that, for the fact that, you know, like Neil said, the big heavy hitters for the Avengers have gone, you know, and so the ranks are thinning. With the popularity of the Falcon as Captain America and Winter Soldier hold a franchise, you know, you've got Ant-Man and Hulk, they'll be in future movies, and Doctor Strange. Spider-Man's going to have to be used sparingly because they've only got a certain amount of movies. I think Marvel would have wanted him to be the focal point of the Avengers moving forward. But with the rights issues, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be one of those things where if they could, I think Disney would buy the rights off Sony, you know, just give them, you know, 300, 400, 500, 600 million for the rights.
Sony will never let them go, mate.
Yeah, but then it's a case of Sony know the value of it and they can just keep rebooting it, keep rehashing it in the future, and people will still buy into it, you know. So right, Andreas, you got creative control.
Okay, so I've never read a Fantastic Four comic. All I know of them is the sort of early 2000 movies, which I used to watch with my kids when they were much younger, and had our standards and expectations for superhero movies were a bit lower back then. And obviously the Josh Trank movie, which, well, you know, poor guy. But I've watched a few cartoons. I really enjoy what they represent. And, you know, I know a lot of people, I'm a big fan of The Incredibles, and I know a lot of people have said that's the closest we've had to a true Fantastic Four feeling. So I'd like to retain an element of that family dynamic, that sort of funness. So the way I do it, and this is not detailed like Neil. I mean, Neil had a full-on. I went through the whole movie.
I know he's got a script in his house.
Somewhere. Somewhere. Okay.
We just got the cliff notes.
Yeah. So I'd first introduced Doctor Doom in a non-Fantastic Four movie because you know we haven't got Thanos. You need that sort of new big bad, that overarching. And although he's not like a intergalactic sort of an alien, essentially, he's a human, but he's got that. I mean, every time I've seen him in all the movies, I've just his presence is awesome. And I know that there's thousands of Marvel villains that I don't even know of, and you know, I keep discovering them. But when you think of Fantastic Four, you do think of him as the main. Okay, so I'd introduce him in some sort of other MCU movie before we get Fantastic Four, yeah? The other thing I'd do is I know that it's so blatant, but it was so set up that why was the Avengers Tower sold? You know, it was so, all I thought was, oh, that's got to be the the Baxter Building,
Mhm.
that A has to turn into a 4. And I think fans will just lose their minds if in a post-credit scene or something it just showed that 4, you know, on that building. I think it would be cool. I don't know when, in what movie, whether it's the Fantastic Four movie or the previous. So I'd have their origin story just implied. So it doesn't, because like we said, you know, Captain Marvel did do a full-on origin story, and it did feel a little bit like we've been there before and sort of told that type of story before, you know, that linear origin story. So theirs will be implied. Space mission. It's not like they were from the 60s trapped in a time. Because I did think about that, but I thought, look, I'm just going to keep it simple. They haven't been around. They haven't had their powers till now. Space mission goes wrong, come back with powers. Some sort of accident which gives them their powers. And I was thinking, why don't we cause that cosmic event to be in one of the new cosmic movies, either Guardians 3, Thor 4, or The Eternals. I don't know what it is, but something that happens there where maybe right at the end of one of those movies, you literally see them floating, their bodies floating. That's when you first see them, and it ends on that. Like,
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
my thing's got bits of all yours. I love it.
Yeah, so it ends on that, and then sort of in their movie, they've been brought back down to earth somehow, and from the off, they've got their powers. I thought it'd be quite cool. I don't know about, you know, how the age of Human Torch. I've always seen that he was the younger brother, or he was the youngest. So if it could be possible to make him a classmate with Spidey, although I don't know what's happening with Spidey going forward. He's on the run, he's a fugitive. But I thought, man, it'd be quite cool if you got some sort of competition between them. And what Neil was saying about the Human Torch needing that sort of like attention, and that, you know, he's a little bit, especially in the earlier movies where Chris Evans played him a little bit douchey, you know, a little bit cocky. So it might be really cool leading up to a sort of fight between them, but, you know, a fight where we know they're going to be buddies.
I think they've got quite a good friendship in the comics, like Peter Parker and Johnny Storm.
Yeah,
so
they do.
Of a similar age, I think. Anyway.
Yeah. See,
So-
I was along the same lines. I think when we talked about the Spider-Man 3, about potentially having Johnny appear towards the end of the film, going to the school with Peter as like a new classmate kind of thing. So yeah. So
that's in terms of plot ideas, how I'd introduce. That's how I'd introduce. Obviously, I haven't got a full beat by bit.
Nah.
I just got how we'd introduce and some ideas I would
right
sort of put in the room for the writers.
Yeah. Well, see, it's really interesting. That's what's great about hearing everyone's opinions, because mine's very much a little bit of everybody. So I had two trains of thought myself. It's a case of, do we want to establish like Spider-Man? No need for a backlog. But then I was thinking, it isn't, you know, we've had the origin story twice. The first one was like a good, 20 years ago or something like that. And the last one is not a film that people have really revisited, the last Fantastic Four. So I thought, because of the type of movies that we have at the moment, where they are all sequels pretty much, I was going to do an origin story for this one. Because you're going to have Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, Ant-Man 3, you know, they're all going to be sequels, Guardians, Thor, everything like that. So yeah, for me, the first one I was like you, Johnny Storm, I thought about having as a classmate, but then I changed my mind and I actually want Iceman to be in school with Peter. So it's more Peter Parker, Spider-Man and his amazing friends, a little bit like the cartoon. So I swapped them out. And so, yeah, going back on my old podcast, I've changed my mind now. So that's great. When you have creative control, you can do what you want. So for me, I would have them appear at the end of Thor, Love and War or Love and...
Yeah, Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder. So I'm going to have them appear at the end. So like Andrea said, there's going to be a big climax in that movie. It's going to be a battle where it sends a shockwave out, potentially, throughout the local universe. And basically, right as a post-credit scene for Thor, you're going to have a spaceship sort of like come right into frame, like through a wormhole. And you're going to have the passengers slightly lift their heads. They're all in kind of matching uniforms. And you're going to have Reed Richards sort of like get up, look at the dials and say, "We're back. We made it." And that's where you see him. So then it comes to their own movie, and it's taken a little bit in terms of like the Captain Marvel type of situation. So I'm going to have them set in the 60s. So it's going to be, because we've had World War II, we've had Captain America, we've had the 80s. So these guys are going to be banging into the 60s, and it's going to be part of the space race. So the USA, USSR, they're going out, trying to get into space to be the first people in space. So Reed Richards is the one sort of like leading that. You're going to have Sue there. You'll probably have Johnny as the sort of like a test pilot. And you're going to have all of them together there working on this like government secret mission. So you're going to have the NASA side, but then you're going to have this Baxter funded one who are going to try and almost beat NASA to it for their own reputation, in a sense. So that's where they're going, and that's how basically they're going to get up into space. So they're going to launch themselves up into space, and then obviously something goes wrong, and what's going to happen is they're going to get sucked into a wormhole, essentially. So you get sucked into the wormhole, and they end up in the negative zone. So like you guys, I don't know too much about it, but it's pretty much like a parallel of Earth. But this one is going to be so far behind Earth, it's going to be sort of like just after sort of like prehistoric. So past the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So maybe even dinosaurs, I don't know. So just to add this really fantastical element to it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really far behind. So they're now got all these powers, they're discovering on this other planet, and they are trying to find a way to get back home. So they're having to try and work together. They're learning their new powers. They're trying to survive the new elements. And that's how you're going to get that conflict within them, sort of like not working together and then coming together. But also they'll meet somebody on this planet, and this is going to be Ivan Kragov, the Red Ghost. So he's a Russian scientist. So we're going to have him also stranded in here because he was pretty much just behind them in their venture into space. So he's actually got it's either going to happen at the same time, or Russia have beaten them and he's actually been there a little while previously. So I think he's probably going to be there previously. He's going to be slightly sort of like that isolation thing. He's been there by himself, and his actual powers, the way it goes, is he has the ability to control apes. So he actually has sort of like a whole planet of apes that he's able to control to help him in terms of survive. And he's getting them to help him build a way to get home. So then it becomes sort of a race between the Fantastic Four and the Red Ghost, trying to compete to basically get out of there, because they find from their monitor readings there's going to be another cosmic event coming. It's going to be sort of like these once in every 50-year opportunity kind of thing. It's going to come through and they have to time their jump to get back through the wormhole kind of thing. So they have to be able to work together because a Russian scientist has got all these apes helping him build. So it's like, look, there's 100 of him, there's 4 of us, we need to work together. They end up in a battle. They make the jump back into space. And that jump back into space is where the post-credit scene from Thor was. So they're like, right, we're back. So now it's modern day. So again, it explains why we haven't had them around for the past like 40, 50 years. Puts them in present day, but they've already got all their powers. They're used to it. They started working as a team. And then sort of like they come back to Earth, and then you see them go sort of like enter into the Baxter building kind of thing. So, which is now, like you say, in New York. And they're having to get used to new modern life, and new technologies. And so Reed's like got all this potential as a scientist, and now with Tony Stark gone, he's going to be the #1 guy in terms of the brains, but now he has all this stuff that Tony kind of left in terms of technology that he can kind of use and build and stuff like that. I was thinking about the robot they had for Fantastic Four, and that might be a sort of like a very primitive onboard computer that they have, a little bit like Friday for Stark, and then he's able to use that technology to sort of like create his version of that AI for the Fantastic Four. And then so we'll have a post-credit scene where we go back to the negative zone, and we see the Red Ghost is kind of left behind. He's trying to pick up the pieces, and he has another character coming to frame to meet him, and it's Annihilus in the post-credit scene. So he's on the negative zone with the Red Ghost, and they're going to help each other kind of get back. So that's my take on how I'd kind of introduce them. So it does take elements from each of you guys. And I wouldn't even have Doom in this at all, because I want Doom to be the next big bad of the MCU. There is going to be a rivalry with Reed Richards, but I want to see that develop. So I really like the idea that Chris had of him coming from the multiverse. So he's not somebody who's been around. You would have had this Victor Von Doom, who's always been in the shadows of Tony Stark because he was always the number one. Now he's gone. It's him and Norman Osborn. So you'll get a name drop of Norman Osborn there as well. Sort of like the two people who are trying to become the big guys in sort of like the military business, the tech and the arms. And this, I like the fact that this new guy comes and takes over because he's going to be more ruthless. Then he sees Reed Richards as a threat because of how smart he is. He never encountered a Reed Richards on his Earth like that. And then you're going to have that kind of build between them. So it's going to be Reed Richards and Doom as sort of like the Thanos, Tony Stark, Iron Man, sort of like brains responsibility kind of thing. Because I definitely think the Fantastic Four need to be the focal point going forward. So yeah, so that's how I do it.
It's funny because one thing that I always kind of had, but this is probably because of the fact that I'm like insanely a big fan of Fantastic Four, is that for me is like Doom's. I firmly believe Doom should be basically the Thanos level threat for the next wave of Marvel films. He should always be the guy. He's what you have to worry about. He's what you have to be afraid of. But I think even though he's not intergalactic, I think the best thing about him, which a lot of people seem to forget, is he's actually a world leader, right?
Yeah.
He's basically the evil version of T'Challa, because he is the ruler of Latveria, right?
That's right.
So I'm like, what I would have, the kind of thing that I would have, because I always look at it, I guess you could say it's the one of the key traits that I latched onto from the Nolan trilogy, was that you never knew about the Joker until film 2, but when he came with the thunder.
Came hard, yeah.
And I'm like, for me, that's kind of Doom. Is I'm like, you establish that he exists, but it's just he's another casualty for all the people who know who Doctor Doom is. The fans or people who may have seen previous movies, they'll know. Oh well, Doom, right? But I'm like, maybe you don't like call out his last name. Like maybe every time someone addresses him, they call him Victor, or maybe he's got a funny, like they'll give him a funny I don't know, like a funny nickname or something that he is not a fan of, but it's just a name that sticks. Like maybe they call him VD, and it'll be the perfect thing of like Johnny will make sexual jokes about it, being like, oh, your name's VD. Venereal, okay, but it's thing of after his accident, the one that I established he has an accident. After that, he goes back to Latveria, and that's when you don't hear about him again. He's just in Latveria, but he's just constantly watching. He's basically like a mix between, Black Panther and Batman. He's tapped in. He's hacked into every feed he can, and he watches everything that unfolds in the world. But whereas Reed's outlook is like, oh, let's save everyone. Doom's like, yeah, I could do without that country existing.
So what if Doom was actually, so think about how we could tie it in. So you have Sokovia, which was decimated by the Avengers.
Yeah,
he could go in there, rebuild it, rename it Latveria.
Yeah.
And become the powerhouse of that country, who's got something against the Avengers, superheroes, and that kind of stuff. And he starts expanding that country's borders by getting people to buy in to his way of,
ideology,
imperialism and ideology, and the technology that he can bring them. So that's a possibility as well.
Perfect. Because I mean, even if you think of it like that, it gives you the perfect little thing of where, I mean, I don't know whether or not I'm pretty sure that the character Zemo,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's in Falcon and Winter Soldier show.
I think he is going to make an appearance.
But, like depending on what happens to him, you could if you have it in that way that it's like, okay, so Doom steps in with all the technology and the power and the wealth and everything he has, and he rebuilds Sokovia as Latveria, which it does, you know, you could even have it that he renames it Latveria, and he's like, you know what? When it was like long ago, before it became Sokovia, it was actually Latveria.
Yeah, before somebody came else and took it
Before
over.
somebody
Yeah.
I like that concept. I like that concept of them being up against sort of an actual ruler, like you know, someone who starts off running a country and then he's getting more countries following him, almost like powerful, like Hitler in a sense. Someone that has got that capability to sort of, you can't just go and take him out because there's people that love him, even though he's so nefarious behind the closed doors, the propaganda that he puts out. That's a really good concept, guys.
I think we're piecing it together, man. This is
And it sort of ties back as well, you know, by bringing Sokovia back in and sort of,
yeah, because it kind of, you have the Accords, but that's kind of it. So it was kind of like, okay, you did this really, you know, this really terrible thing happened, and there's the consequence for you guys to it. But Zito was kind of that, just that main focal point to say that he represented that country and like the pain that they went through. So then you magnify that onto a bigger scale now. So that's really cool. One thing I forgot on my one is, because it was based in the 60s, you're going to have Howard Stark working with the Fantastic Four in terms of the space race. You probably have Peggy Carter maybe make an appearance. I was even thinking of Cap, time travel Cap, in the background somewhere as a little nod if he would come and do a cameo.
But hiding in a closet.
Because because Reed Richards then worked with Howard Stark. When he comes back and find out Tony's dead, he's more likely to pick up that mantle of his, and he kind of inherits that kind of stuff. So that's what I was thinking.
You can even have Pym in there as well, Hank Pym.
Have him back as well. Yeah,
and I think I always kind of like, I loved it, but one of the things that I loved about Doom, or I love about Doom, is because he's a world leader, he has diplomatic immunity.
Yes.
So whereas most villains do all of this horrible shit and we can just arrest, you know, they can just be arrested and thrown in jail if they live and they're not killed. With Doom, it's like maybe we have it in a way where Doom is a bit like I don't know how well you guys know the Green Lantern series and Sinestro. Like the way Sinestro is portrayed is he never gets his hands dirty. He's always letting the ring do all the work until like he deals with Hal Jordan, and then he's like I'll take this ring off and beat him with it. Yeah. But you know, you always have it that Doom is basically, you know, he'll get someone else to do it for him. So he's never directly doing something. So whenever they come to him and they're like, "We know what you did," he can be like, "Bro, I'm a leader. You ain't doing nothing for me." Like, you know, he could be like freaking like the villain from Lethal Weapon 2. Just every time he does something wrong, just pull out
diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity.
I like that.
And he can just run it like that, and then it's like it builds. So it means that every time he does something or he allows something to take place, the governments of the world, they're like, "Look, we got to take this guy out," and they're like, "We have no justification. All we know is this took place. We have no proof that he hired this person to do this. We have no proof that he granted these people this. He's got all this information that says, oh, somebody broke into a lab in downtown Latveria and stole a piece of tech.
Yeah,
I didn't give it to them. They stole it.
Yeah.
Why am I being arrested for someone else's crime?"
Yeah. And it's a perfect opportunity at this point, because basically the world is going to be trying to put itself back together. You know, basically half the population disappeared. They had 5 years. Now they all come back. Agriculture's messed up, you know, supplies, all this kind of stuff. He can be putting those things into place in those countries. I can give you this. I can give you the infrastructure. I can give you the support to start building those countries back up again to support the population that's now come in.
Yeah. Have you guys read Superior's Iron Man?
No, I haven't.
No.
It's pretty much as if Tony Stark was a bad guy. So basically, he's a genius, and he like sells his extremist technology to the nation to make everyone like fix illness, solve world hunger. But then he starts to charge people like so much money. There's like a subscription fee every day to keep yourself alive. So you could do the same thing. You know, he has turned Latveria into this utopia, but he's got kind of everyone hostage with his technology.
Yeah.
I like that.
But that's it. It works perfectly, because you could have it. I mean, I think honestly, Ken, that what you said about like have him rebuild Sokovia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Oh
cool.
man, that is a magical idea.
That's why I'm here, Ruff. That's why we do this podcast.
Think about that 5 years now, because like you say, we don't know what's happened in that 5 years. So that 5 years is perfect.
Because all we've seen is what's happened in New York, right, with Spider-Man.
A lot of countries as well. And that could actually be a culmination of, you know, many
several countries. Yeah.
Nations decreased, and he's kind of amalgamated them into one new nation or something like that.
Like who would be a superpower after everyone's come back? It's not necessarily. It might not necessarily be America or China. It might be a completely different country because it's a completely different world.
Well, that's the thing as well. Is it allows you, because I'm all about furthering storylines as much as humanly possible, and having that say like, okay, so you know, Eastern Europe is decimated, and he basically creates what would roughly be like a new Soviet Union. You know, without, you know, the gulags and things of that nature, but he creates this newer, stronger version. Like you say, like Latveria can be literally like, it could be the amalgamation of the worst, like a group of smaller countries in Europe that were all decimated by the snap. Obviously, Sokovia was decimated before the snap, but it's all of these countries, and he just binds them together. He's got the technology, the power, the knowledge, everything he needs to get the country back on his feet. And he does that. And even when the snap is reversed and all these people come back, he could be like, all these people were held, not say they were held by dictators, but, you know, it'll be a thing of, we could even have him just showing his political knowledge without having to kill anyone. Just like having a debate with other leaders, and they're like, you stole my country, and he's like, no, I saved your country. You know? This was the crime rate in your country before I got here. This was the poverty rate. This was this. And he was like, now look at, you know, it was like, this was the worst. You know, he could even have a moment where he's like, I wanted this debate to take place in this area, because this area now where we stand was the worst area in your old country. The capital of your country, and you just let crime and poverty and famine reign supreme. I came in, and with half the resources and half the people, because half the planet wasn't here anymore, I made it a utopia. And then he's like, let's put it to the people. And the people get behind them. Old ways, or do you want the doom ways? You know?
All right. Okay, I think we've done really well there. There's some really sweet ideas there. Right, let's go on to casting. We'll go one by one, I think, in terms of, Reed Richards. Who have people got?
I'll go first. I'm going to go for the obvious one, John Krasinski.
Second.
Third.
Yeah. Well, I've got a wild card as well, so I don't know whether to throw it out.
What's the wild card?
Try it out.
Sorry?
What's your wild card?
What is it?
Well, going back to the previous episode where you threw in Sterling K. Brown for Jon Stewart, I thought he could actually do a really good Reed Richards if you wanted to, you know, do a little change.
Mix up a bit,
I thought of that as well, but it was only because of Black Panther that I didn't put him in. But I thought exactly the same you did.
I know it's one of those things. It was a small role in Black Panther, so I think you could maybe get away with it. And
I love it.
I just like the idea of dynamic as well of, like, obviously, you know, interracial marriage and stuff, because it's just kind of like they don't seem to do that very much. Especially,
I think he'd be perfect as a. I've
only seen a little bit.
He'd be amazing, and I'm almost disappointed he has such a small role in Black Panther, because I think he's such a talent. I think that I'm wary of Marvel going against fans' expectation and casting not against the ethnicity of the comic, because they saw the backlash the last one, and I think they are going to be. Marvel's all about trying to keep the fans happy, and I'd be conscious whether they would actually take that risk. It'd be nice to see if they did. But I've got an idea for that as well, so which might play into a little bit. But my other two potentials for Reed Richards was Andrew Lincoln from Walking Dead.
Yeah, I thought about that.
And also Timothy Olyphant.
Oh yeah,
Justified, Die Hard. he could kind of pull that together as well. So they're my top
Yeah.
3 for Reed Richards. Go on, Neil.
Me, I've had a top 5 for a while.
Yeah.
Of course you have.
Just want one.
He's got 5 for each. He's got 5 for each character.
No, I'm serious. I do. I have 5 each for every character. Right?
I knew you would.
Right. My number 1, my gold tick. This is the person. Is, as all of you, is John Krasinski.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guys, the other contenders I had were because I'm like, my outlook is the way Marvel Comics is set up now, and with the characters that they can introduce via the MCU, we don't need to racially swap any characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'm like, look, eventually Ms. Marvel, Kamala, she's gonna be in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's going to be a moment, because I'm like, you're talking about the first Middle Eastern hero.
Yeah. And what's nice is she's going to get an introduction in the Avengers game that's coming out later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm like, looking at it like that. So my outlook. So John Krasinski is my gold standard choice, but my other 4 were obviously they'd never get him, but Leonardo DiCaprio. He's like number 5. Stephen Moyer. He was Bill Compton in True Blood.
Oh, right. Okay.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Because he's not been in the MCU, James McAvoy. I think McAvoy would have been a brilliant Reed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that.
Okay.
And the only other choice was Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
I think my only issue with him is he always looks 12 years old.
Yeah. That's the first thing I thought as well.
You need to add a little bit of grey to the sideburns. Grey to the sideburns, but...
It still look 12.
Yeah. He'd be like a 12-year-old doing cosplay as Reed Richards. Okay, right. So, Sue Storm. I've got 4 here. An obvious one is Emily Blunt. Sort of like the Mr. and Mrs. in real life. I didn't know how much that would play out well, but then I thought actually it worked really well in A Quiet Place.
I agree with that.
Really on screen, really well chemistry on screen together. She's done action, Edge of Tomorrow and stuff like that, so she's got the chops. Somebody else I had in mind was Rosamund Pike, Gone Girl.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I thought she could be really good. I think she was a Bond girl, or an evil Bond girl at one point as well. Someone completely left field was like Kirsten Bell, whether she might be able to bring something a little bit more lighthearted to the role. And there was one other person who I think is a really great actress, and she hasn't really come big yet, is Sarah Godin. She was in 11/22/63, the TV adaptation of the Stephen King book. In True Detective and Alias Grace, I think it's called. She's a really great actress, and she's got the look. But I think because she's a little bit less known, it might balance well. I think potentially if you see Emily Blunt and John Krasinski on screen together, it's a little too obvious.
Yeah.
And because he's my number 1, I need to have somebody else instead of Emily Blunt. So those are the 4 that I had for Sue Storm.
Yeah.
Who's next? Go on, Sue Storm.
All right. I had again at a top 5. Emily Blunt got the nod because obviously her relationship with John Krasinski, and I mean, looking at John Krasinski just in A Quiet Place, he looks like Reed.
Yeah.
And her behavior is that of Sue. It's she is essentially the glue that binds all the people, the 4 together.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was like I had, her. She was in there as the pick, but I mean, my other 4 were Charlize Theron.
Yeah, she almost made my list.
Yeah, because I'm like, they ain't nice, right? I also had Teresa Palmer.
What was that one?
Teresa Palmer.
Teresa Palmer. The name sounds familiar. What's
Oh
she
yeah, Australian, I think, isn't she? Is she Australian?
I believe so.
Do you know what she's been in?
Let me think. What is Teresa Palmer in?
Was she in that zombie?
She's in Like Out. She's in I Am Number 4. She's the main. She's the love interest in Warm Bodies.
Oh, on Warm Bodies.
Okay. Yes, I just looked her up. Okay. Yeah, I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah. So she was a choice.
Yeah, she was in Hacksaw Ridge as well.
Yeah. Jessica Chastain.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I feel that she could do something with that. And also Lauren Cohen, Maggie from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
So they were my picks for Sue.
Okay. Yeah. Batman's mum. Okay.
Only one for me, Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
I know it's the obvious one, but I've got it in my head.
It works in your mind, right?
I saw them both.
So many mock-ups online of them together, like in the costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
It just fits.
So I did think of others, and I made a list, but I just thought she's the only one in my head.
Mhm.
If I had creative control.
Chris, Alex, any others?
No, mine's the same, Emily Blunt. Obviously, she'd probably gotten in with Marvel as well, because I'm sure she was pretty much front runner for Black Widow, wasn't she? Before.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, she was, and I think she only did because she got pregnant at the time. I think.
Yeah,
I don't remember what the reason was. I know something happened. I mean, obviously it worked out for the better because I think Scarlett nailed it. But she's obviously gotten in there potentially with Marvel. So yes, she's the only one for me.
Chris.
Yep. Same. The only one that's really left field for me is Elizabeth Banks.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I like her. And she's somewhat related to one of my Johnny Storm recommendations as well. So I'll save that for later.
Okay. I like that. All right. So talking to Johnny Storm. So how many have I got? I mean, it was tough because you're trying to balance the age of the characters. And when I was thinking of Johnny Storm, I was also thinking of Iceman for X-Men. I think they could be quite similar. So my three is, I don't know if it's Darcy Montgomery from Stranger Things.
You stole it. You stole it.
You stole mine. You stole mine.
So yeah, Stranger Things. My other one, for me, he's got a great look. He's got the confidence. He'll have the cockiness. I think he's the right age for it. So I think he's probably my number one. Two others is Ansel Elgort, Baby Driver.
Yeah.
That story. The other one is Taron Egerton. Kingsman character a little bit, and it's. I think he could fit that as well. So, but yeah, Dacre's my number one choice.
Yeah, I'll go then because I'll agree with that because Taron was my number one, and I also thought of Ansel Elgort as well. But yeah, Taron Egerton for me was number one. I'm not sure how old is Taron though, because as much as I like him in terms of like age with Emily Blunt for younger brother, I wasn't sure if he was, because again I was also thinking of the link to the age with Spider-Man. I don't know whether he's
he's 30. He's 30.
Okay.
So he's a pretty good age.
He's obviously played
character for a while. So
he's played younger. So I was a bit, for that Peter Parker. I know in the comics, is he a couple of years older than Peter?
No, they're the same age.
They are actually the same age.
In certain iterations, they're the same age. In other ones, they're like slightly.
Okay. I thought he might have been a couple of years older. That was my only issue with Taron. There was obviously works I think well for Emily Blunt as the younger brother, but not so much necessarily as the friend for Peter. But yeah, that was my choice.
Okay.
Any more?
Well, yeah, with Johnny Storm, obviously. You stole my main one, which is Dacre Montgomery. I think that's how you pronounce his name, especially if he's sort of going to be that classmate with Spidey. But I thought if they didn't go down that avenue of classmate, I thought John Boyega could be a good one.
Okay, yeah.
I just think he's got such swag. I think he could bring something to the role.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But the age thing there, that was the only problem. But John Boyega was my only other choice.
Okay. Anybody else? Chris, Neil, any others?
You stole mine.
Sorry, dude. That's why I'm going first on all these. All right.
If you've got the right person, then you've got the right person.
That's it, right?
That's Montgomery. He got my gold tick.
Yeah.
So it's great consensus here. All right. So Ben Grimm.
But hold up.
My number one for Ben Grimm is Terry Crews.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, that's a good one. So
that for me was somebody you could cast a little bit different, which I don't think would get much heat in terms of relationship with Johnny and Sue and all that kind of stuff. I think he's a great talent. I think he can deliver some real great comedy. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is absolutely amazing in that show. I had two others. One was David Harbour after his turn in Hellboy, Stranger Things. although it's a terrible, terrible movie. David Harbour's great. The other one with more left field is John Cena. I didn't know how that might work. I didn't know if that was. He can play different, and he's done. Whenever he's been in a movie, I've really enjoyed what he's done with a small role. I just don't know whether he could do this. It'll be interesting to see what he does in the next Fast and Furious. But yeah, I think Terry Crews is my number one.
See,
I thought no one would have that, mate.
you see, it's funny, right? Because I mean, like, I never got to, but I'm gonna list my other picks for Johnny, and then I'm gonna.
Oh, okay, go on.
My pick for Ben. So I had Zac Efron as one of my ideas.
Okay. I considered him.
Right. Dave Franco, younger brother of James Franco. And Joe Keery, who's also in Stranger Things. He's Steve.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Because I think he could have done it. And the only other one I had, but I was like, yeah, this guy ain't doing it, was Dylan Minetti. He's like the main character from 13 Reasons Why.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah. I took Zac Efron out of mine because I was considering him for Cyclops. So when we get to that podcast,
yeah. But for Ben, I mean, I had some wild choices for Ben. Joel Edgerton.
Oh yeah. No, that could work.
Like you, David Harbour, he was in there. Mark Wahlberg.
Yes,
I
Marky
feel like Wahlberg could do it. One which was just pure fantasy was Bill Goldberg.
Right. Okay.
But my gold standard pick was John Cena.
Right. Okay. So I wasn't that far left field. Okay. So would you have obviously Ben Grimm? I think we'd all be on the version. It should be a CGI, a motion capture like the Hulk, right? We don't want a costume, right? Or do you want prosthetic?
Yeah, I think CG would be the way, but part of the reason for my pick of Terry Crews is that he's got the build that you wouldn't have to have the suit be massive on him.
Yeah, spray him orange.
And that route, it would actually probably work with him as well.
Some cost savings on that CGI.
I mean, it would have to be
Ringo style or something.
Motion. Yeah, it would have to be motion capture.
It's got to be motion capture, I think.
I had my two picks for the Thing, but that's a good question about whether CGI or a prosthetic suit, because I do love the way, in the original Hellboy movies, his suit, it's not CGI, right? That's
nice.
That looks in all of them.
Yeah, that looks awesome. So there is, I wouldn't rule it out, but
even the new Hellboy, it was a costume.
Yeah,
so it could be done. Yeah,
and I did think of David Harbour because he's obvious. The only reason I didn't put him, just like because he's in Black Widow.
That
was the only reason I didn't put him down, because otherwise he'd be really obvious. But so I had two choices ruling him out. You know the actor who was in Detroit as the really racist police guy? No, not him. Another guy. He was in Game Night. Sorry, they look alike. He was in Game Night as an awkward neighbor. Jesse Plemons, his name.
Oh yes.
So very unusual looking face. Kind of. He was in Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought, I could really see him as Ben Grimm.
That's
or the
an
other
interesting
one,
choice. Yeah.
Okay. The other one, which was my wild card, was Ice Cube.
Yeah, that's Ben Grimm, I believe.
So, but I think Terry Crews is a brilliant choice there.
All right, cool. So now we're on to Dr. Doom.
Whoa.
One
more.
No. Go on.
I went Joe Manganiello.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that.
He's Deathstroke.
Yeah.
So he's got that kind of like threatening side of it. I was trying to think of the voice.
Is he Deathstroke? He's like had a cameo and now they're probably not going to use it. But I like that. Yeah.
That's a good one.
He goes from Flash to to Ben Grimm.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more others for Grimm?
I was just trying to think of voices, because so much of him is that CGI, it's the voice. You think it doesn't really matter what they look like.
Because again, going to the voice thing, I thought Keith David's, he's got one of those iconic.
Oh man, he's like
the voice of Spawn show. Obviously, if you wanted to do him pre-transformation. Obviously, he's a bit on the older side. But obviously, Marvel, they always do the de-aging thing, so that's quite an easy thing to do. The only thing I've actually no, he has done some comedies and stuff as well, so he can probably pull off like the comedic side of it as well. But that was sort of thinking of just like a voice to go with a CGI character.
Yeah, that could work.
Right, Doom. So I've picked 3 for Doom. Doom I found really hard.
I've only got one, mate. There's only one.
Oh wow! Right, okay. This is really interesting. So I think my number 1 is going to be Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, Jaime Lannister for Game of Thrones.
Okay, very good. Very good.
So he was probably my one. I also had Giancarlo Esposito, Breaking Bad, Mandalorian.
He's the only one.
And the other one I had was Lars Mikkelsen, House of Cards. He was like the Russian prime minister in that. I think he's in The Witcher as well. So those are 3 that I've had for Doom.
Choices.
Giancarlo, mate, all day, every day.
I can see that. Yeah.
I just kept thinking about. There's a scene in Breaking Bad, obviously, when he cuts the guy's Victor's throat with the box cutter.
Yeah.
And that sort of stare he has in his eyes. Well, I just kept picturing those eyes like behind the Doom mask, and just thought,
right.
That is Doom. That's right. That was it.
And he's already got links with Disney, obviously.
He has,
exactly.
Yeah, obviously, with Mandalorian.
That could work.
Do a nice little Breaking Bad nod as well, because obviously when he takes his mask off, you could make half of his face scarred.
Good.
I like, because what would be great about Doom is it's someone that has to be played in very small parts for a considerable period of time.
Yeah.
And you can see him as that diplomat, we were talking about in terms of, sort of like that empowerment within politics. So I could definitely see that as well. Cool.
I had 3.
Mm-hmm.
No particular gravitation to either one of them, but I have to say your choices were excellent. Javier Bardem.
Yeah, he was almost on my list. Yeah.
I mean, he was such a great villain in the Bond movie.
Bond movie, yeah.
He was wicked. Michael Fassbender. I mean, I know he's in X-Men, but he's got that look. And Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah. Yeah. I could. Yeah.
They were my 3 picks.
Okay. Chris?
I'll go, Chris.
Oh, Neil's going. Go on.
No, go, Chris. Go, Chris.
Chris, what you got?
I had 2. A Gerard Butler, bit weird, but I thought physically, but the accent.
Yeah, okay.
I thought of him for Ben Grimm. I thought of him possibly for,
And the other one I had was Michael C. Hall.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
Because he had that in Gamer, again, terrible film, but he was the bad guy, and he was that tech sort of entrepreneur that was kind of brilliant, but also a little bit off his rocker.
That's a good. No, I like that.
See, it's funny because one of my first pick, because as I said, I've had this idea for a very long time. My first pick I wouldn't be able to use, which was Mads Mikkelsen, because obviously he's the villain in Doctor Strange 1.
Yeah.
But he would have been perfect core cast.
Yeah, that's why I've gone for his. That's gone for his relation, Lars.
Yeah. I also feel like Ralph Fiennes could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. My super out there left field choice was Matthew McConaughey.
I've heard. I've seen that online a little bit as well. Yeah.
I don't think that's so left field. I can see that.
So what about DiCaprio for Doom?
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll ever do superhero.
Yeah, he won't.
No way.
No, it's probably too big budget for him. But if you took Django Unchained, that kind of craziness kind of thing, you could see him. But
you look at
I don't think you'd sign up to that kind of franchise.
But my final 2 were Adam Driver, because I feel he needs a little pick me up after there's a lot of people that don't like Kylo Ren, so he needs a little pick me up after that. And I feel like he'd be the kind of, looking at his portrayal of Kylo, that kind of like uncertain of yourself, but like you're supposed to be this good. I'd like that for Doom, to build that relationship between Doom and Reed, because it's like you went to Doom goes to the finest schools and is like educated and he's used to being top of the class, and then suddenly here's this kid from nowhere or this guy from nowhere who's just like, oh, like he was like, oh yeah, that thing you're working on, yeah, I was doing that in high school, you know, and it's just like, fucking prick. But my absolute number one draft pick is Alexander Skarsgård.
Yeah, I was very close to adding him as well. Yeah,
like I think like looking at him in True Blood, like he could just do it. He could just be there. And it's like when you say about the eyes behind a mask, like looking at, like I've seen, you know, many episodes of True Blood, and when you just look at his face when he's staring at something and he's like, your dinner. I'm like, if all you could see were those eyes, like you do something wrong, you don't want to see those eyes looking at you. And I feel like he's the kind of perfect look as well, because seeing him before the accident, before he has to wear the whole mask and helmet and everything, it's sort of like, just for the vanity of it, I'm like, if you're butt ugly, basically, right? And then you have an accident which forces you to wear a mask, it's no big loss. But if you're like, every woman in the world probably wants me, and then you have that accident that forces you to wear a mask, like the rage that must build in you. And I feel like he's got that.
A really good example of what the potential he has for a Doom, actually. I don't know if any of you guys have watched Big Little Lies with Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman and stuff. He plays a husband in that who's very abusive and stuff like that. And he has these switches of rage and these really charming sides of him and stuff like that. If you watch that, you'd see it and say, I could see that as Doom.
The thing is, he looks like someone from that part of the world as well.
Aryan, yeah.
Kind of, yeah. But yeah, amazing picks for Dr. Doom.
We smashed it. All right, I'm going to throw one out there, and if you guys can think of anything off the top of your head. Now, Galactus, I think, is going to be way down the road, but just purely from a voice perspective, because I think, like Thanos, he's probably going to be motion capture and this kind of thing. It might not be any actor playing it. Who knows? From a voice, can you think of anyone off the top of you have as Galactus?
I have one person, but it's a toss-up between them as Galactus or Silver Surfer. It's crazy out there, but I'm saying Morgan Freeman.
Wow.
Everybody loves that Morgan Freeman voice. It's so calming. It's so soothing.
Okay.
But that voice telling you that you are nothing to me and I'm going to eat your planet. I'm like, you know, it's the best way I can describe it is like, have any of you watched the film Wanted?
Yeah.
When he said, kill this motherfucker, am I the only person who was like, oh my gosh, it was like hearing Granddad swear for the first time.
Yeah. That's interesting. All right. I had one, Dennis Haysbert from 24. He played the original president, and I think he was in The Dark Tower recently as well.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Him from a voice perspective, I think he's got that booming present voice that could kind of deliver.
He's also, he's very sort of articulated.
Yeah.
And sounds sort of sophisticated, that kind of stuff. I'm going to come and just devour your own planet.
And the thing is, Galactus doesn't have to get angry. You know, he's going to deliver it. Like Thanos, very much is like, this is a matter of fact. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I mean, Mark Hamill does voices. You know, maybe he creates something for Galactus. Because he did Chucky recently. He does the Joker. He's a voice actor as well, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Possibly.
What about Kevin Conroy then?
Yeah.
You know one person who could do it? You know, one person who I feel could do it, even though they're already in the MCU? Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
Because all he ever says is, I am Groot.
It's true.
But I'm like, listen to that Vin Diesel voice. Think of like Pitch Black. Think of maybe like the fourth Fast and Furious film where he's like kind of grown into his voice. His balls have dropped a bit more. Like that level of voice.
Yeah.
Now that's the voice you want to hear when, you know, the man who eats planets turns up.
I like
What about Oscar Isaac?
Yeah,
I mean, Apocalypse was all kind of wrong, but I think the voice
I kind of considered him for Doom as well. But I think it's because of Apocalypse, I didn't think of him. But if he's going to be someone who's going to come much later down the line, like a Galactus, I could probably see that better for him. So yeah, I think that's a good shout.
What's his name? The guy who played Alfred in Batman vs Superman. I forgot.
Jeremy
Irons.
I was thinking Michael Caine then. I'm like, that wouldn't work.
No. All right, I've come to eat your planet.
You know, I mean, like, the ultimate voice, obviously this person isn't alive anymore, so there's no way it would happen, but the ultimate voice would have been Orson Welles.
What about James Earl Jones then?
Yeah, I thought of that. Yeah, powerful. What about
Unicron?
You need probably it's Unicron exactly, but James Earl Jones will probably need to record his lines. James Earl Jones will need to record all his lines like next year.
Yeah, here's another sort of just off the topic one. If they were to have Silver Surfer, any thoughts on who would play Silver Surfer? Whether it would just be voice or the actual.
I actually thought how they did the Silver Surfer was pretty good.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say that's about probably the best thing.
Yeah, I love Silver Surfer.
Both the actor and obviously the voice, I think, actually worked really well.
Yeah, bring Doug Jones back. If not Doug Jones, then I'm like, you just want
Keanu Reeves.
To be honest,
it could have worked. I think he's going to be in Eternals.
Okay.
But,
Patel.
But again, if it's a voice, it could work.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm like, it's going to sound horrible. It doesn't matter who physically embodies the role, because if they're just going to be literally the carcass covered in silver.
Yeah, it's like Rocket, you know, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, because was it Sean Gunn plays Rocket?
Sometimes I think they had to stand in other times,
But that's the thing. It was literally just, I would just find that kind of perfect, kind of very lean, very slim, slender frame.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just someone who can pull off the poses. Like Doug Jones was
he was brilliant. He was excellent.
I'm like, you could never
bring
find
him back.
Well, there you go. You could have Sterling K. Brown then as Silver Surfer.
Yeah, that was a good choice because he's got a really good voice, and his emotions in his face, if they were doing the motion capture, could work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'd be perfect for everything.
What about, I mean, the guy who played Dr. Manhattan in Zack Snyder's Watchmen film.
Oh, Billy Crudup?
Yeah, Crudup.
Yeah.
He'd be perfect because essentially they're so similar in disposition and that sort of blankness, matter-of-factness. But I doubt that actor would want to just
revisit the blue lights.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we smashed that, to be honest.
Yeah.
We'll when this goes out, we'll tag Marvel in, and they can come to us and pay us the big bucks for the copyright.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks everybody very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed what we had to talk about today. If anybody wants to find you guys on social media, do you want them to? And if so, where can they find you?
You can find me on OnlyFans. Just kidding.
Find me, Andreas, Muddy Loop, all one word. Just watch me eat sandwiches, make sandwiches, and make music, and love movies.
Awesome. Alex, where can we find you? Oh, Chris, where can we find you, Alex?
Just it's just only my personal Instagram, so nothing fancy. It's just Lex_Damon, DOMAN.
Cool. Chris?
At Quiver on basically everything. CWIVER. That's basically any platform you can think of. I've managed to get
you everywhere under one name.
Like Madonna.
Neil?
You can find me on Instagram at Shoot for Moon Pics, but it's like the word shoot, the number 4, the word moon, PICS.
All right, cool. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Kenan Talks Film. Please let us know your thoughts on this episode and suggesting movies for us to discuss in the future, either planning franchises or going back and fixing mistakes of the past. You can watch all our episodes on YouTube, and you can also download and listen on iTunes and Stitcher. If you like what we do, please like, subscribe, and share our podcast across social media. If you thought this podcast sucked and you don't like us, please then like, share, subscribe, and share ironically. Thanks very much, and until next time.
Au revoir.
Peace.
Bye-bye, gentlemen.
Bye.